What's up, One Pride? This is RachelMarieSports, and I am excited to once again be hosting your Detroit Sports Alliance Roundtable. We have a very special guest for you tonight, but I'm going to go ahead and introduce the rest of the panel first. First, we have one half of the Real Detroit Lions fans dynamic duo. What's up, Andrew?
What's going on, guys?
And then we have none other than Right or Wrong.
What's up, Rachel?
What's up? And we have OMG, it's Lions Talk with us.
What's going on? What's going on?
And last but certainly not least, from your usual panelists, we have Jim Bordeaux from the Detroit Sports Room. What's up, Jim?
Nothing much. How's it going? Looking forward to talking to our special guest tonight.
Absolutely. And let's go ahead and introduce him. I just learned how to pronounce his last name, so let's see if I get it right. With pressure right now. But our very special guest joining us from SI All Lions is Logan Lamorandier.
Oh, you nailed it.
Yes.
Thanks for having me.
We are really excited. We're going to have some great questions for you tonight. Andrew, why don't you go through some roll call? Shout out who's in the chat.
All right, we got Kyle Webb in the building, Troy, Barbara Valor, Detroit Drew, Rich Law, James Hofield, John Kapler, DMAP Zoom. Thank you for joining the chat, and let's have a good show, fellas.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and just roll right into the questions. We're going to start off with panel's questions for Logan. And let's start with you, Jim. What do you got?
Okay, Logan, I wanted to know this. I think the biggest question mark in the Detroit Lions team coming up this year is the offensive line. I want to know what you think about that offensive line and who do you think will be the starters when we start playing football this year?
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. The maybe defensive line is concerned as well, but the offensive line, they've obviously losing Graham Glasgow is a big loss. He was one of the better players on the team last year, not just the offensive line. And anytime you lose that player, you draft two rookies to come in and compete and re-sign a guy like Kenny Wiggins. But ultimately, you can't really put too high of expectations on mid-round draft picks for rookies and think that they're going to come in right away and be an improvement over Graham Glasgow. So I think that's a downgrade. As far as losing Rick Wagner, he didn't have a good season last year, but I think overall he's always been kind of an above average right tackle. Nothing special, but he's had a couple really good years as well. But the Lions signing Vaitai, I don't know if that's going to necessarily be an upgrade over Wagner or not. I'm a little bit concerned about his pass blocking ability. I do think he's a better run blocker than Wagner, but overall, the offensive line, I think Ragnow and Decker are solid. I think Joe Dahl he was the incumbent last year at left guard, and I think he will remain either a starter as a guard on the right side, maybe even on the left side as well, depending on what they do with one of their rookie guards. And I think that will be Jonah Jackson. I think he's a little bit more proven and technically sound than Logan Stenberg, and there's a reason that the Lions drafted Jonah Jackson over Stenberg. So if I had to guess, I would go that Joe Dahl and Jonah Jackson will be the guards, Frank Ragnow at center, and then obviously Decker and Vaitai as your tackles.
Very, very good. All right, thank you.
Does that match up with what you think, Jim?
Yeah, actually, I think there's going to be a rotation at the guard position, the left guard position. I think it's going to be Wiggins and Dahl again until Logan Stenberg gets flexible enough and works on his pass blocking abilities. I also think Jonah Jackson will start at the right guard position, so everything else is fine. Everything else I think is the same.
Yeah,
awesome.
And I think that rotation will continue probably. It's rather unorthodox, and you don't see it around the league too often, but for whatever reason, the Lions wanted to do it last year, and I don't know why they wouldn't do it again this year if they felt comfortable doing it last year.
Okay, and this is just a quick follow-up question to that. How do you feel about that rotation? Do you feel like it's kind of creating inconsistencies on our line?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of it. Kenny Wiggins last year, I don't think he's as horrible as some people try to make him out to be, but I thought Joe Dahl and Graham Glasgow deserved to be on the field a lot more than Kenny Wiggins did. It just kind of, I always question why you would put Kenny Wiggins in there, when you don't see any other teams doing this in the NFL. It's not like the guards get worn out or tired that they need to be replaced. So I just don't really understand the philosophy behind it. I'm sure there's probably like some analytical reason or something I'm just missing. There has to be a good reason, but I'm not a big fan of it, and it appears a lot of other NFL teams don't think it's a necessity either.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been a huge fan of the rotation. It's something that kind of throws me off, but we'll see what they end up going with this year. And with all that being said, Ryder, what's your question for Logan?
Okay, so we all know that the Lions signed a bunch of Patriots players. That's kind of their thing. But if we don't have a preseason, if the NFL doesn't have their preseason or training camps and stuff like that, do the Lions have an advantage because they have all these Patriots that know how to play with each other, but also know the system that they're playing in?
Yeah, I think it's a slight advantage. I think they only signed 3 guys on the defensive side of the ball, and guys that will be starters: Jamie Collins, Ron Harmon, and Danny Shelton, all guys who should see significant playing time. And I know the Lions fans sometimes get a little bit upset about signing former Patriots, but since it's such a unique defense, I think that just like you see other 3-4 teams sign other 3-4 players with this 3-3-5 defense that Patricia runs, you're going to see them also sign other 3-3-5 defensive players, and that's a lot of them come from the Patriots. So I'm not too upset about that. And as far as I don't know if you can really say there's going to be a huge advantage there. I think there will be a slight advantage, but it might not be anything noticeable in terms of being familiar with the scheme. It definitely doesn't hurt.
Yeah, I definitely agree there. And I mean, hopefully with this offseason being so affected by COVID and this whole pandemic, hopefully familiarity with the scheme is just an added bonus.
Yeah.
All right.
No, I agree there.
I have a quick question. Just to kind of branch off that. Why do you think the Lions fans are so against Patriot players when the Patriots are like the winningest team of the millennium? Like, I just don't understand why we're trying to branch off and do our own thing so much that we don't want any Patriot players. That just kind of seems, I don't know, backwards.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit just due to the fact that there's so many Patriot players that get big contracts when they leave elsewhere and they don't live up to those contracts. And Bill Belichick just knows how to use certain individuals, and he always seems to play to their strengths and get the best out of players. And then when these guys go to other teams, they don't always just live up to that hype. And I don't know. There's so many fans out there. It's like, we don't want to be the Patriots. We want to have the Lions culture. But when you come from the Patriots culture and you run the same defense as the Patriots do, there's going to be a lot of interchangeable pieces, and it doesn't hurt to have more players that are already familiar with the scheme and are familiar with Patricia or want to play for Patricia, because he is a unique individual a little bit. He's not necessarily a player's coach where all these players want to go play for Patricia. You kind of have to have the right attitude to play under Patricia. So I'm totally fine with it. What's a little interesting to me is you look at what Jamie Collins got paid last year by the Patriots, just over $1 million, and now the Lions are paying him $10 million a year. It's one of those things where, yeah, that's why the Patriots are the Patriots, I think, because they find bargains, and now the Lions just have to make sure that they get that same player out of Jamie Collins that you saw last year in New England. So I think it's just scary for people, because people assume that they're not going to be the same player in New England as they would be on their new team.
Right. I agree. I don't understand why the Lion fans are so against giving guys the big contract. Like, it seems like the forwards kind of rubbed off on us a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I don't mind it. I really liked all 3 of the Patriot signings this year on defense. Duron Harmon was a trade, but I thought he's a great addition to this defense. He's a true free safety and is a ball hawk. He makes plays in the fourth quarter and in crunch time. Danny Shelton is a guy who has played really well the last couple years. We needed a new nose tackle after Snacks left. And then Jamie Collins is just a piece. He's a big player, but he's also athletic. And outside of Jared Davis, we just haven't had that type of athleticism and versatility that in the linebacker core. And that's such a vital piece to Patricia's defense. So I have no problems whatsoever with the 3 guys that they brought in from New England this year.
Well, what's good, Logan, man? We talked a lot. I just wanted to say the only reason I don't have a problem with players that are good football players.
Sorry, guys, I didn't mean to.
I don't think Lions fans know how to compartmentalize that stuff. If you're a good football player, you're a good football player. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You still there, Logan?
I am. I didn't hear anything.
All right, we might be having some technical. Okay. Oh, you didn't hear anything? Okay, can you hear JMO? Let's just make sure.
Wait, can you hear me?
I can hear you, JMO.
I can hear you.
I still got nothing.
Oh man.
That's interesting.
Wow.
I am not sure how to fix.
In the chat hear me?
I am not sure how to fix that. I'm going to take you out of the chat and then bring you back in. But while we do that, Andrew, why don't you go ahead with your question for Logan?
All right. So as we all know, the Lions' biggest flaw has been the run game. So I was looking at one of your articles that you wrote, and it's saying that in 11 personnel, we average 4.9 yards per carry compared to like 12, 21, and 22. Why is it that our one tight end sets seem to produce a better run game?
Yeah, and I found that really interesting as well, because Darrell Bevell's always been known for running these heavy, big formations with a couple tight ends or a fullback. And towards the end of the year, the Lions running game did start getting better. And I just kind of wondered why that was. So I tried to start looking at tendencies. And the biggest thing I noticed was just Nick Bodden went down with injury. So they started limiting their fullback usage, and they brought in Isaac Nada, who played tight end and fullback, but they didn't use a fullback as much. And then the same thing with tight end. TJ Hockenson got hurt, and so they started using less tight ends. And I think what it probably came down to is just the style of running backs, especially with Kerryon Johnson coming back the last 2 weeks of the year. I think it really opens up. It doesn't just the box isn't nearly as congested. I saw at the beginning of the year, I just felt like there were so many times when Kerryon Johnson would get the ball and there'd just be nowhere to go. And that's because there's probably 8 defenders in the box, because the Lions had 2 tight ends, maybe a fullback in, that allowed defenders to creep up in the box. They didn't have to respect the pass as much. Now, that is the beauty of Darrell Bevell's offense, is he's going to take his shots if you're loading the box deep. And I think that's one of the key reasons Stafford had so much downfield success, is because there were so many defenders loading up in the box, and you had Galladay and Marvin Jones that were able to take advantage of not much safety help or one-on-one corner play. So I think it really is, it just comes down to the numbers game. When you have 3 wide receivers on the field and only 1 tight end, and that tight end can be split out, there's not as many defenders that are playing as close to the line of scrimmage, and it gives, by default, guys like Kerryon Johnson, who has a little bit of patience to him and is a bit of a slasher where he takes a second to find his hole, but once he can get through, he goes. When you have just more openings and holes, not as many defenders in the box, I think it naturally just allows him more space. So that's kind of my conclusion. I came from it. Sometimes, correlation doesn't always equal causation, but it's one of those things where I hope the Lions do kind of maybe open up their offense a little bit more and just don't have so many heavy formations going forward.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And I just have a quick follow-up. Does that make you feel like investing so much in the tight end position was a little silly?
Yeah. I mean, Jesse James' contract right now, he did not have a good year last year. He was below average in run blocking. He did next to nothing in the receiving department. So that one's hurting. And they can't cut him this year because he costs more. He'll have more dead cap than he would just keep around if the Lions did want to get rid of him. So it is. Hockenson, I don't mind the pick necessarily. That's a debate for another day as far as if a tight end ever worth a top 10 pick. But yeah, it's just one of those things where I looking back at it, yeah, you kind of wish they invested at least somewhere else and not so heavy in that tight end group.
All right. Thanks, man.
All right, I'm going to take a pause just for a second. Let's see if you can hear JMO now. JMO, what's up?
Yeah, what's up, man? Can you hear me?
Oh, there we go.
All right. Okay. Perfect. We got that figured out. And let's just go ahead and JMO, go with your question for Logan.
Yeah, so I'm very, very upset with you, Logan. You know why? Because I was gonna ask so many questions about TJ Hawkinson today, and you just had to go drop a whole article on me, like about what I was gonna ask you about. Like, thank you for that.
Oh, sorry to spoil it. Hey, maybe people haven't read it yet though, so now I just feel extra prepared.
Yeah. Right. I mean, I do feel like he will have numbers very close to that, or even higher, because I think they're gonna force feed him the ball like no other to warrant that pick. But my question does have to do with the offense. A lot of fans are worried about the defense, and I really don't know where the defense is going to be. I'm trying to be optimistic, but I really don't know what the defense is going to be. So, assuming that we can't depend on this defense, if the Lions have a running game, do you think the offense will be enough to carry this team at least to double-digit wins?
To double-digit wins, I think if there is a run game, I think the offense could carry him. You saw even last year with Stafford, the offense was carrying the team, and they were right around 500 football. So if the
that's without a running game.
Yeah, and that's without a running game. So if you include a running game and they're a little bit more balanced, and you now have just an avenue to close out games instead of what's happening in the Arizona game where the Lions were trying to run and they ended up having to pass, and we all know how that story went. But yeah, a running game I think would really balance out the offense and probably help out the defense a lot. And Patricia's philosophy has always been just to control the game, whether that be through running the ball, passing the ball on defense, limiting, bend but don't break, but just run the ball. So if they do run the ball, yeah, it's a complete offense. And that defense, I think they played the second most snaps in the NFL last year. That's probably a big reason why they also allow the second most total yards. So if the Lions are offense is able to stay on the field, yeah, you're probably going to see a better defense as well.
Yeah, because I do believe the defense could be better, but I don't know how confident I am and how good they're going to be early on. But I do think the offense, I've been saying this entire year, the offense is going to carry this team. And I think with our backfield, I think our backfield is just too talented for us finally not to be able to run the ball. If we can't run the ball with this amount of talent, just sell the team. Because, we ain't going to never be able to do it. But, unless you get Barry Sanders, but there is no other Barry Sanders. He's a one of one. So, I just feel like the offense is going to have to carry this team. I feel like the defense is still going to be bad. It's going to be a lot of high-scoring games, but that running game that we'll have would allow us to win some games. Of course, you want the defense to be better, but I'm more confident in what I've seen, and I've seen the offense carry this team, and I'm just wondering if the running game, adds to that, will it actually matter in the win column?
Yeah, I think it will, because DeAndre Swift, it kind of surprised me when they took DeAndre Swift. I thought they might get a more power-oriented back, but considering that they took Swift, it kind of indicates that maybe they will spread the ball around a little bit more and open up the offense, because Swift is the best three-down back, in my personal opinion, in the draft. And with Darrell Bevell's power scheme, I assume Jonathan Taylor might be a better fit. But now that they've taken Swift, I really hope that they do continue that trend that they were doing at the end of last year, where they were doing 3 wide receiver sets quite a bit, limiting the fullback usage, more shotgun, just going to a more kind of today's offense, not going back to that traditional ground and pound, which is just not in vogue right now in the NFL. It's a pass-happy league. So if you can get – we've been saying it for how long? If you can just have 1 year that the running game is actually in the top half of the league, which Stafford has never had, I think it's going to just do wonders, not only on the offensive side of the ball controlling, but it's also going to impact the defense just not being on the field so much.
Yeah, you would have thought that we would have tried to go to, even though Aaron Jones isn't a power running back, you would have thought we would have tried to go to Green Bay route to make the running the leader on the team. But, I just feel like a lot of those power running teams, the running back is the best football player on the offense. And this team, we could have got Jonathan Taylor. I actually like him a little bit more than Swift, if you would ask me. But I just think that they wanted to get some speed. get some, breakaway game breaking ability, and running backs that can pass and catch. Because San Francisco has multiple running backs that all do the same thing, and they all good at it. So maybe they're trying to do something like that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they kind of come up with the run game this season. We've been keeping our fingers crossed year after year that this will be the year. But I'm going to go ahead and follow that up with my own question, and that is,
no, I agree. I will admit I did like Jonathan Taylor a little more.
Wow. Absolutely. Am I delayed?
I don't know. I think one of us is, but so Mike, I'm going to go ahead with my question. Do you buy into the Matthew Stafford hasn't done anything bit at all? Or do you firmly stand with the belief that quarterback wins are not a stat? Logan, do we still have you there?
I think some technical difficulties might be occurring.
I think we are experiencing some technical difficulties. Let's see if we can get those figured out. Why don't I go ahead and open up that question to the panel while
I might be the one that's really delayed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe.
What's the last thing you heard?
Make sure you guys like the video. He said he's like
Okay. Yeah, we're seeing that he says he's about a minute behind. So sorry for the technical difficulties, you guys. Let's see if we can have him log out and log back in. And as he does that, let's still go ahead and open this question up to the panel. What do you guys think? You guys think that quarterback wins are a stat, or that's not a thing? Andrew, what do you think?
If you believe quarterback wins are a stat, then clearly you don't look at the game of football, because it's a full team. I mean, it's 11 men on offense, 11 men on special teams, and 11 men on defense. One man does not have a stat. A team as a whole has a stat, and that includes the coaching and everything. So I hate when people say this quarterback is versus this quarterback, because they're not. They literally have nothing to do with the other person whatsoever. They're versus different defenses on different teams. So it is not a stat in my opinion.
All right. Logan, can you hear us now?
I think I'm good. I hope I'm up to speed and I'm not lagging behind a minute anymore.
It sounds like you're good to go right now. You hearing me kind of in real time?
Yeah, as far as I can tell.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and pose that question again. Do you buy into the Matthew Stafford hasn't done anything bit at all, or are you a firm believer that quarterback wins are not a stat?
Well, I spend so much time defending Matthew Stafford. I do think there is a little bit of merit to, yes, quarterbacks elevate their teams and you do find wins, but when you really I don't believe quarterback wins is a good way to evaluate a player. And that's what it ultimately comes down to for me, because you'll look at what Stafford has worked with and just the team around him. I know, just a couple years ago, the Lions had were allowing 24 points a game when Stafford was at quarterback. And that's the second most that any quarterback who's ever played 100 games with a team has ever allowed. So that's really bad. When you look at since Stafford was drafted, they haven't had, a top half ranked rushing attack ever. They have the 32nd ranked rushing attack since 2009. So there's just so many things that go against Stafford that make it really difficult for him to find success.
You said they had the average of the 32nd ranked rushing attack since 2009.
Since Stafford was drafted,
so we literally have been. I know he has the worst rushing attack in NFL history. So we literally been the worst running team since he got here.
Yes, yeah, very very little help. And if you try to compare and look at other quarterbacks when they've been in similar situations, and it usually doesn't end up well. And you start looking at. I've dug into all these stats, just trying to find, every way to look at it. And anytime you have a team that struggles to stop people on defense and they allow a lot of points and there's no rushing attack, it's a very low win percentage, and Stafford is well above the average. So I do think he has provided a lot of wins for Detroit, and even though it's never accumulated into a playoff victory or anything of postseason success, it's just, I think the most difficult part for people to comprehend is just that Stafford has had next to no help, maybe outside of one season where you could say he had a really good defense and an okay running game, and they won 11 games. But outside of that, for the most part, it's Stafford always carrying the team. So, no, the QB wins to me, it's a horrible way to evaluate talent, but I will give it some credence that, the best quarterbacks seem to find a way to win. But in my mind, Stafford is still plenty good enough to take this team to a Super Bowl if they ever were to surround him with the right pieces.
I got a question about that. You say the best quarterbacks seem to find a way to win. Can you show me one of those QBs that's winning without a running game or a defense or a good head coach?
So, yeah, they
usually have
Aaron
one
Rodgers
of the three.
had one
That's
year.
all I'm saying.
Yeah.
They got one of the three, and we have 0 of the 3.
Right. It's really tough to find. And even the best quarterbacks, they always struggle. Well, they don't struggle, but their success doesn't show up in the win column. And that's ultimately why QB wins is judging these quarterbacks on. It's just how much they're winning. But Matt Ryan, I know back in, it was a long time ago. Like, I think his 3rd or 4th season in the league when they won 13 games, they had the last ranked rush defense, but their passing offense was great and they won 13 games. So now they didn't win the Super Bowl or anything like that. So, but that was kind of an outlier. And then 2 years after that, they also had like a bottom ranked rushing attack, and the Falcons only won 3 or 4 games. So it's just very difficult for quarterbacks to consistently win without a rushing attack and minimal defensive help.
All right.
I just want to follow this up with a quick question too here. So, I mean, what's the main thing that you say to those people that have been calling to trade Stafford?
Well, first and foremost, they really can't trade him with his contract. The dead cap hit was way too much. And no matter the case, the Lions are going to have to find a quarterback. And even if they draft a quarterback high in the 1st round, and he is a good quarterback, they're still going to have to put a team around him to find success. If you already have the quarterback, how about you just build the team around him to be good? Because you're going to have to do it whether you trade Stafford or not. So quarterbacks are not easy to find in this league. There's a QB carousel going on this season. You saw the quarterback shuffle of all these different guys that have gone places, but I don't necessarily say to people if they want to trade Stafford, that's the worst thing in the world, but I don't agree with it. But I do understand that having a rookie quarterback on that cheap salary gives you a 4-year window to really, build up a team and buy in free agency essentially. So it's, for me, I wouldn't trade Stafford. It's that simple. Just because you look at all the stats that he's put up and how much he's carried the team, I think he's a quarterback that can definitely win. And you put him in any other situation, like Ben Roethlisberger's been in, or other players that have Super Bowl wins, and Stafford would have Super Bowl wins too in my mind.
Absolutely.
Logan, it's not even that tough. Put him on any team in the division not to name the Lions, and he probably would be in the Super Bowl.
That's true.
Be honest.
That is true. For our last panel question, because I know OMG asked one that just popped into his head earlier. Let's go back to you.
Yeah. This is going to actually come a little bit off the wall, but do you think the Lions believe in David Blau replacing Stafford? And if so, why is he not the backup? Why did they give Chase Daniel that contract when Blau's played in 5 games?
No, I don't think they think that highly of Blau. They traded him last year. Essentially, all they did was they swapped 7th-round picks with Cleveland. So an undrafted rookie free agent quarterback, maybe they like his potential as a backup, but them signing Chase Daniel kind of tells you all you need to know what they think. And they didn't just sign Daniel to a 1-year deal. It's a 3-year deal. So that's going to be real tough for Blau to ever even be the number 2 quarterback on the roster for the next 3 years, in my mind.
Right.
Okay. Fair enough. So let's move on from panel questions to just the 3 topics that we have to kind of discuss as the panel with Logan tonight. The first topic being, what do you guys think are the top 3 matchups for the Lions this coming season? What do you think, Ryder?
So my first matchup is week 1. I want to see, can our run game run against the Chicago Bears front 7? Because if we can run against them, I feel like we can run against anybody in the NFL. And obviously, it's the first week. I want football to be back, but I think if we can run against Chicago, we can run against anybody else on our schedule. My second matchup is week 4 against the Saints. I want to see how Jeffrey Okudah and Desmond Trufant fare against Michael Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders. And then my third one is week 16 versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And again, I want to see how our secondary matches up with all these weapons and Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Gronkowski, and all these other players. I think that those 2 games are going to be huge tests for our secondary. And I mean, if we can hold our own against those guys, I think we can hold our own against anybody in the league.
Absolutely. Those are definitely some good picks. What do you think, JMO? You there, JMO?
Yeah.
All right. What are your top 3 matchups for the Lions this season?
That's kind of hard because I honestly just want to be like the divisional games, but since I'm not going to be that boring, because I think those games really matter the most. The Saints definitely, because when we beat them, the whole world will be shocked. Tampa Bay most definitely, and Tennessee. We've never beaten Tennessee. I know they ain't been around long. We always lose to them, and we probably gonna lose to them again this year. I don't feel too confident about that game, but I want us to beat that game because of, one, we haven't beat them, and it's the type of team that they are. We need to be able to beat that type of team if we want to be successful. A type of team that's gonna give you that power running game down your throat and play solid defense and not make mistakes or turn the ball over. You got to go out there and you got to beat them. So to me, those are the 3 games. But when we beat the Saints, the world gonna be shocked.
Right.
And we usually play pretty well against the Saints at home. It'll be
Stafford
interesting to see if
3-3 versus Drew Brees. So they 500 versus each other. So yeah.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what we get without if fans are allowed in the stadium or not. How about you, OMG? What are your top 3 matchups? OMG, you there?
My first matchup is week 1 versus the Bears. Cause can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Am I clear?
Yep.
Okay. First matchup is week 1 versus the Bears. I gotta see how we come out in the beginning of the regular season, because that week 1 game against the Jets, Patricia's first game was just awful. So I have to see how we come out week 1. I think that means a lot. Then the second game is versus the Cardinals. Like, I have to see an improved Cardinals team versus an improved Lions team and where we match up compared to last season. Because last season, as you know, was a tie. I got to see, where the Lions, how they've improved. And then week 16 versus the Bucs. I think that game is kind of marked on everybody's calendar. We want to see how we match up with those guys' weapons, because that's plenty right there, and that'll be a true test of where Patricia's defense is. So those are my 3.
Okay, I'll go ahead and give my 3. I'm going to say the matchup against the Buccaneers. I think that's just the ultimate test of our secondary, and kind of seeing how they're functioning under a new defensive coordinator and after, a shortened offseason. And against, in my opinion, the greatest quarterback of all time that has some renewed offensive weapons. It's going to be crazy. I also have Arizona on that list. I'm looking for a revenge tour. I think we both bolstered our rosters. We're both going to come in looking a little bit better than last season, and we got to keep our hands together and pray that we don't tie them again because everybody's going to lose their minds. And then my third would be going to Lambeau to play Green Bay. I'm still on that revenge tour mindset. After last year and the bad refereeing, I just really want to pound them into the ground in Lambeau. But
Me too.
Let's
31-0 again.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm trying to do.
I'll never forget it.
That is exactly what I'm trying to do.
Yes.
Logan, are you still with us?
Yep.
All right, perfect. What are your top 3 matchups for the Lions this season?
Yeah, so I think a lot of them have already been mentioned, and 2 of them are going to be divisions. I think the Week 1 matchup against the Bears, that's just going to be the tone setter for the season, really. And the Bears, as of right now, the general consensus seems to be that they're, kind of in the Lions tier, fighting not for the last spot, but, just that team that they don't really know. No one really knows what they're going to be. With who knows what Mitchell Trubisky's going to be, or if it's going to be Nick Foles. But I think the Lions have to beat the Bears if the Lions want to be able to put up a fight in the division. And then, as you mentioned, Rachel, just Green Bay, the Lions last year were literally losing for 0 seconds in both of the Green Bay games, and they lost both games on last-second field goals. So, and that was a Green Bay team that won 13 games last year. So I always want to win in Lambeau. I always want the Lions to beat the Packers. And then Tampa Bay, lastly, just with all the hype that they're getting, and Tom Brady, Bruce Arians, Rob Gronkowski coming back, and that receiving core, I think that's just going to be a real fun game to watch. And I hope that by Week 16, I really hope that the Buccaneers roster is still all complete put together, because I want to see I want to see fireworks and an offensive showdown.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
That game in Lambeau last year it broke my heart. I think we can safely say that for everybody. It was a really rough game to watch. And I'm going to kind of use that to transition into this next topic, which is Sideline Report says that the Lions should be looking at Clay Matthews prior to the start of training camp. What do you guys think about that? Would you be interested in adding Clay Matthews to our linebacking core? And I'll go to you first, Andrew.
Hey, so I didn't get to answer the other one real quick, so I just want to touch on that.
Yes, go back to that. Sorry.
No, it's all good. So I definitely think the Packers Week 2 is going to be a huge game for us. Every single year, it's go through the Packers or you're not winning the division. So I firmly believe that we have to go through them to win the NFC North. And then one of my other games is the Cardinals, because I want to see if Matt Patricia can adapt from what happened last year. Being able to learn from your mistakes and allow us to beat that team, because we should have just completely blown them out of the water. And then I'm going to throw a team out there that no one threw out, and I'm going to say the Redskins, because I want to see us beat teams that we should beat. Okay, so I know everyone's throwing out the teams that are really good or a divisional rival, but I want to make sure that we can also win against those teams that should be an easy win, because in years past, we tend to beat a team like the Patriots on their Super Bowl run, but then lose to a team like, the Redskins or the Giants or someone.
Caldwell beat all the weak teams. That's Matt Patricia that don't know how to beat these weak teams. He know how to beat the good teams though, and Caldwell couldn't do that. It's very funny, ain't it?
Right. And then, Rachel, can you repeat the question one more time for me?
Yeah, so Sideline Report says that the Lions should be taking a look at Clay Matthews prior to the start of training camp. What would you think about adding Clay Matthews to our linebacker core?
I personally love it, and I love it for the sense of I believe we could get him for cheap. And not only can he play a situational role and a rotational role, but then he can also develop a player like Julian Arquara, who is going to be playing a very similar role that Matthews played when he was in Green Bay. So why not learn from someone that is going to go down as one of the, the Packers' best players they've had on defense in a long time? I just think he has a lot to teach some of the younger guys, and I think someone like Arquara could learn from him.
I agree. I got to pause really quick to take this question from John Macaroon in the chat. He says, first time comment, is it true that Logan wants to offer Stafford 10 years, $600 million after the season and he'll sit back?
I already know I wanted that. Let's make it a
good time, man.
Thank you for joining us in the chat, John. I know I figured you might pop in to say something to Logan. But Logan, what do you think about adding Clay Matthews to the linebacker core here in Detroit?
Yeah, as with any free agent, at the right price, I'm always interested. And what's interesting with Clay Matthews is that he's an edge rusher, but he's also played some Mike linebacker in the NFL as well. And we talked about Patricia liking versatile players earlier and that the scheme is dependent on it. I think Matthews could play kind of that type of linebacker role that Patricia wants. So I'm not against it. I don't know if the Lions feel comfortable. They do have quite a few linebackers on their roster right now, and they've typically only kept 4 the last years in terms of off-ball linebackers. And Clay Matthews, I think he still has some juice on the edge. He's been kind of hot or cold, but just having a stable veteran, the Lions don't really have that at Jack backer right now. It's that edge rusher. They lost Devon Kennard, so I'm not against Clay Matthews at all. It's just he has to come at the right price.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there. I mean, I saw a lot of people saying that he might be a little bit older and washed up, but I mean, last season he was still pretty productive in LA.
Exactly.
Eight sacks, 33 tackles, 3 pass deflections, 2 forced fumbles. I think his production is still pretty high. And I'm kind of always about like a middle finger to the Packers, like signing somebody because they've played against us for so long. What do you think, JMO?
For any person that's going to say no to this, I'm going to remind you, and I'm going to say this in a calm, nice voice. Christian Jones is still on the team. So don't talk to me about not wanting Clay Matthews when Christian Jones is still on the team. Like, I don't care how old you think he is. I don't care if you think he washed up. He's still better than Christian Jones sleepwalking. So now that we got that off the table, replacing him with Christian Jones, I think is a big deal because you guys know, even when we were talking to Jeremy Reisman a couple of days ago, I am obsessed with how bad our linebacking core is. I know our D-line needs some work, and y'all know I love Tavai. I think he's very solid. Jamie Collins is solid. Eric Davis can rush the passer. We don't know what else he can do. And other than that, who are our linebackers? Reggie Ragland, I'm not expecting much. And then a bunch of special teams guys. Our linebacking core is literally looking like you got Collins and Tavai, and Jared Davis is a pass rusher. That's what our linebacking core look like. That's a nightmare. Like, it makes me, scared at night. Like, just thinking about, Aaron Rodgers throwing the ball over to the middle over Devontae Adams because we don't got no linebackers. I just feel like adding Clay Matthews would help. It would give us some pass rush, just like Andrew said. It's going to help with the veteran leadership, and he's going to give us some dog. I feel like the Lions never bring in those type of players that don't like to lie down and lose. You know what I'm saying? Because it's about heart sometimes, and a lot of times when we get steamrolled, it's because none of those people on those teams know anything about winning or having heart. If Clay Matthews can help us win a game or not get steamrolled, he will, and he's way better than Christian Jones. No, man, Christian Jones got something on somebody because he's still on the team. But Clay Matthews would be a great addition. You get rid of Christian Jones, you bring in Clay Matthews. I would love Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn for this because our linebacking core is in trouble.
Can't argue with that. What do you think, Ryder?
I mean, I don't see a downside to it, I guess. I mean, if he's old, then sign him to a 1-year deal. I mean, we have the money. It's not like we're tight on money. We can't sign these people. We have a ton of cap space. We have a ton of money to go pay him. If he's old, sign him to a 1-year deal and see what he can do in Detroit. Like you said, he had 8 sacks last year, so he was more productive than any of our pass rushers. And he only played he only played in 56% of the snaps for the Rams last year. So he was only playing half the snaps and still had 8 sacks. I mean, he was playing at a pretty good level last year, and I think I don't see a downside to not bringing him in.
Yeah, I definitely feel you on that. And OMG, what do you think?
I just want to start off by saying I'm glad that none of you guys on the panel was against it. I just want to say that first off, because, man, bring Clay in. call him. I don't even know his number, but I can get his number. We can call him and get him in here because we need another playmaker at linebacker. When you run a scheme like Patricia's where the linebackers are so important, you have to have playmakers. And right now, Collins is the only playmaker. The other guys are situational linebackers. So, I'm all for it. Clay Matthews, please come here.
Hey guys, every once in a while the panel all agrees on something. It's rare, but it actually happens.
My thing is why would look at our linebacking core? Like, why wouldn't you want Clay Matthews added to it? Like, it just I don't understand. Look at him.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely understand it. But let's go ahead and move on to the next topic. The NFL has been
can we toast to that?
Yes, if we ever all get together in person, we will actually toast to that, but virtual toast for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's see. The NFL has been discussing the option to let any and all players opt out of the season if they feel the need due to COVID. If this were to be the case, do you think any Lion would end up opting out? What do you think, Logan?
I would like to think no. And this culture that Patricia is trying to instill in this team, they definitely are always football first, and they're a type of individual that can't get enough football. I just think they have a bunch of guys that football is their life, and that's really what Patricia wants in these guys. So in my opinion, I don't think there would be any players that would say no, and just maybe peer pressure in general. If no one else is doing it, no one else would type of deal. So
Yeah.
that's my thoughts.
No, it sounds funny, but he's right. Because if we are very successful, then we all gonna be like, "Hey, Jared Davis, you didn't come with us, man. How could you not come with the team?" And then it's gonna be a whole thing.
Exactly. I mean, does anybody on the panel see this any differently? Does anybody think, or can anybody think of any Lion that they think might opt out if this was the case?
I just feel like some teams can't opt out. We one of those teams. I'll just put it like that. You the Patriots, yeah, you can lose a couple players. You'll be fine. You the Lions, you better hope you can get extra players.
There is scenarios though where people would opt out. Like, I work in the medical field, and if someone is compromised or a family member is compromised, their immune system is pretty weak, I can definitely see someone taking that hit, financially, not getting paid, or just sitting out the season just to protect their family member or something. But other than that, these guys are competitors. They're coming to play. They love the sport. So if it's not the immune compromised thing, it would just be someone that is like, man, I'm not about to play this season. Right. They're not in it for the love of the game. They're in it for the paycheck.
I'm just gonna throw this out here. Stafford has 4 little ones. What if his wife says to him, "Matt, it's not worth it to play this year. We got 4 babies." Would you like?
No, Kelly.
I'm not like Matt. Go look at her like Kelly.
Kelly strikes me as a competitor. Kelly strikes me as a competitor herself, honestly. Like, I follow her on Instagram. She's a beast. Like, she all throughout her pregnancy is in there in the gym, like doing her kickboxing workouts and stuff. She could get out there and play herself. I don't think Kelly's asking anybody to stay home.
Okay, I hope so. Man, because that would be a tremendous blow to our franchise.
You know what though? I mean, this isn't necessarily Lions related, but if a quarterback on a different team decides to sit out, do you guys think that would lead to the whole team just being like, well, the season's over, our starting quarterback is not playing? Yeah,
that's a good point.
It depends on who it is. Just better hope Nick Foles ain't your backup. Because you never know what can happen with Foles coming to town.
Right.
Well, I mean, with all this going on and all the unknowns with COVID going into the season, that kind of parlays into this last topic here before we take some chat questions. What are your takes on Quinn and Patricia's jobs and whether or not they'll still be around after this season if the season is affected by COVID in some major way? Let's start with you, Logan. What do you think?
Yeah, so if the season's impacted majorly, like they only play a few games, I think they're probably just going to get, a free pass on to next season. It maybe depends too a little bit on how well they play in those games. There's just so many different variables, but if the Lions were to play all 16 games, I just think, you have to have at least 9 wins on the season for them to even stick around. But if COVID, majorly impacts just the length of the season or how it's played, maybe they do get one more year, but to me, I haven't seen enough from Patricia, especially, that just really gives me confidence moving forward that he's the right guy. Like, this is kind of his prove it year because he hasn't been able to do that yet.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we go back and forth on Patricia all the time on this panel. Andrew, what do you think about Quinn and Patricia if this season does end up being majorly affected by COVID?
My heart wants to tell me that if we do bad, that they will be fired. But I just don't think it's going to happen. I think that there's going to be the excuses in terms of, well, you couldn't get together and coach your guys up, and COVID, and maybe someone gets COVID during the season that's a star player and they have to sit out during a crucial moment of the season, or whatever it is. I just don't think that they're going to fire them. And if they do, I hope it would just be the coach, because I think Bob Quinn has done a lot more as GM than a lot of other GMs has, and let alone, our previous one. So I don't think they're getting fired.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think, I think I stated this last show, but I think it may be the way out of their win now mandate is that, it ends up not being fair because they were affected by COVID in some way, shape, or form. What do you think, Ryder?
I mean, I think the NFL is going to have a season, whether it's shortened or not. And I mean, I just feel like if they're not above 500 by the time the season ends, then you can't keep them around. I just feel like if there is a mandate in place, and if they have a season, no matter how short or how long, if the Lions are below 500 by the end of the season, you can't get rid of that mandate because it was shorter. They still didn't win football games, so
that's what I'm talking about, right?
Oh yeah.
So that's how I view it. Is if the mandate's there, you can't get rid of it because it's shorter. Just because it's shorter, if you still don't win games, you can't be here.
Okay, right. I feel you. Are you echoing that, JMO?
Well, unless the season is canceled. Like, if the season is canceled, they get a pass. If the season starts, I don't care if it's 6 games. Only way I'll give them a pass if it's an odd number of games and it's 3 games and one game is a tie. Then, but no, that's not gonna happen. So I just feel like there's no excuses for Matt Patricia. And I'm with Andrew though. I mean, Bob Quinn has upset me a lot with some things. But I think he's been a solid GM, and like if he was to leave, I don't really know how much better the organization is going to get. I'm not saying he's the best, but he has done some good things and some bad things, of course. But he's done a lot of good things, a lot of late round picks. Whenever we have a big need on the team, whether you like it or not, he addresses it. We needed receivers, Marvin Jones and Quan Boda. We needed tight ends. You saw how that happened. We needed a defensive lineman, Trey Flowers. Whatever you need, he goes out and gets it. So I think he should stay, but Patricia, man, he on the clock. To me, 8 games into the season, you need to be at least 500, or they should get rid of him. And I don't think Sheila's playing. I think Sheila will get rid of Patricia in a second. We start off 1-3, he's gone. That's how I feel.
Yeah. I mean, I can definitely see them. I can definitely see them being separate entities. I don't think they have to necessarily go together. What do you think, OMG?
Yeah, I think if Martha would have still been the owner, I think they would have got a 4th year regardless of what they did. But I think now that Sheila is in office, she seemed like she don't play. And if they don't do something this year, then they're going to be out of here. For real,
Logan, what do you think about that? You think that Sheila, it will put more pressure on them to win, and if it doesn't happen, she'll be able to get rid of them and cut them loose, because technically those aren't her guys.
Yeah, technically, I guess, considering that she's been, around Martha and kind of in all those big meetings with the big decisions going on, I think she's almost an extension of Martha, but we don't really know yet exactly what her game plan is going to be. But as you see with a lot of like new GMs that come in, if they have a coach, they don't typically keep the coach. And now that we have a new owner, that's not technically her GM. Maybe she'll want to get a new GM, but I think the expectations have to be higher. That's really what it comes down to. So I guess I could see Sheila basically being like, yeah, this is it. If there is 8 games, you have to at least have 4 wins or else you're gone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, we raising the expectations is something we talk about on this show a lot of the time too, and just how not only do we as fans have to raise our expectations for the team, but obviously ownership as well. And I guess we got to just keep our fingers crossed, right? Who knows?
Yeah.
Right.
But let's go ahead and roll to some of the questions from the chat. I see quite a bit here. Mr. White says, if Patricia doesn't work out and gets canned mid-season, who would you want next in line, Logan?
I think the natural succession right now is probably Daryl Bevel. He proved himself last year that he knew how to run an offense, that's for sure, and he has plenty of experience as a coordinator. Now, you don't always know if a coordinator is going to be a good head coach because it is a little bit different of dynamic, and you're not just on one side of the ball. You have to be able to do everything, but there's not a ton of internal sources, like just in the middle of the season you could really turn to. So I think the obvious choice would be probably Daryl Bevel.
I like your answer, Logan.
All right, OMG agrees with you. I'm going to throw this to one person on the panel as well. What do you think, Andrew?
Yeah, I'm definitely in agreement. We've had this topic before, and I think the obvious answer is Daryl Bevel. I mean, the guy has been in the league for a while. He's had some very successful offenses, and I would want that continuity in terms of, one of our coaches just stepping up rather than, someone coming in mid-season or something crazy. And then if not him, though, I would love Salah from the 49ers. The guy is definitely a player, personality. He knows how to get his players hype, and he's very good at what he does. I mean, he turned that defense around very quickly. And I think having a defensive-minded coach that actually executes properly would be fantastic because Patricia needs to get this done very quickly or else he will be out very soon.
Yeah, we know that's the truth. Yeah. This next question comes from Troy Thibodeau. Are the Lions going to sign any more defensive linemen? What do you think, Logan?
I think they will. It might not be any splashy. I think Mike Daniels is kind of a natural guy to return. He had an injury last year. Maybe they're waiting on that a little bit, but I don't think he's going to be nearly as pricey as he would be last year, where he was $9 million. But with how frequently the Lions rotate their defensive linemen, I think they need one more defensive tackle, and they need all the edge help they can get. I know they got Aguara in the draft, and they signed Trey Flowers to a big contract last year, but they still need more pass rushers because it just wasn't working last year, and you can't rely too much on a rookie in Aguara. So my hope is that they'd sign another one, and I think they will because there's plenty of guys still out there that are still waiting around, and one of those guys is going to just be willing to sign anywhere with, for a one-year prove-it deal, and I hope the Lions take advantage of these players in these situations.
Yeah, I've definitely been a little bit concerned about depth on the line. What do you think, OMG? Are the Lions going to sign any more defensive linemen? I think we've still got a delay with OMG.
I sure hope so. Hello? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Hello?
Can you hear us?
Right.
Can you hear me? Oh, man. Okay, all right. Big delay. There was a big delay. I was talking, but nobody was responding. But Everson Griffin. And everybody knows, I think if you've heard me talk, I want Everson Griffin. And that's that right there is my guy. I just hope that we sign him. He will complete that D line.
Okay, I've definitely.
Yeah, I'm Everson Griffin, he's a solid player, and with how frequently Trey Flowers moves to the defensive tackle spot or just inside on passing downs, I think even though Everson Griffin and Trey Flowers would play in a very similar role, you saw even last year with Romeo Aquara that he saw over 50% of the snaps as a backup defensive tackle or as a backup defensive end because he can also move to D tackle as well. So I think there is enough snaps there if they wanted to go after Griffin to provide a pass rushing spark, and especially on those passing downs to have Flowers play inside because he's very productive there. I'm totally for it. Just really any player that can get to the quarterback, I'm not against it.
Right.
Yeah, we got to take advantage of those. John wants to know, Logan, how many Detroit Lions masks have you purchased?
Funny enough, I don't have any Detroit Lions masks.
Right.
I got the N95 masks. I got all these. My dad handed me a bunch of them at the beginning of this whole thing, and that's what I've just been
Outside
rocking
the
with.
box.
I just got my 3-pack of the NFL shop Detroit Lions masks this week, so I was pretty pumped to wear them out and about.
That's awesome.
I had to do it. Let's see. Luke G says, what will be the Lions storyline come the end of this season? Logan, what do you think about that? Their storyline come the end of the season?
Oh, that could go so many different ways. If the season actually plays out, I think it's going to be similar to what we saw last year with the offense carrying the team, but I do think the defense, it can't get much worse. So I do think the defense will be better. The pieces that they added are familiar with Patricia and his style of play. I think they lost a few good players, but they also added a few guys. So it's just, I really think it's going to be, once again, Stafford carrying a team, and they didn't ultimately meet their goal.
Okay. J-Mo, what do you think the Lions storyline is going to be come the end of this season?
Mine is just like Logan, except the ending is different. Stafford carries the team and they win because DeAndre Swift and Kerryon Johnson run all over the league. That's what I think is going to happen. I think
I
for
like
the
that.
first time in Lions history, like you just can't get me to believe. I know how bad we are at running. We have DeAndre Swift and Kerryon. Y'all really think we're not going to be able to run the ball with these? Like, I watched both of them in college for 3 years. These guys are good. There's no way we're not going to be able to run the ball.
Right.
And we still got Stafford.
1,000-yard rusher?
Is going to break out.
1,000-yard rusher?
I don't know. I don't care.
That's a tough one.
I'm like, do you want to commit to that in the storyline?
I don't know because I think our third running back is actually going to get more tick, like 300, to 500 yard, 400 yard type stuff. I think whoever that is going to get a little bit more tick because Kerryon and Swift are the same type of running backs, and we don't have that bruiser. So if Scarborough or whoever they use in that role makes the team, just like they did with the Rex Burkheads and guys like LeGarrette Blount with the Patriots. That person is still going to get ticked, but I definitely think that it's going to change because we finally going to have that running game. I can't tell you about no defense. Can't tell you about Matt Patricia, losing this game because of coaching. But I find it hard to believe Darrell Bevell is not going to be running the football with this level of talent.
I agree. Right. I think he definitely has to. I would say my storyline come the end of this season is worst to first. And I'll just leave it at that. I don't know I don't know the ins and outs or the in between. We talk about it a lot on paper and on the field. It's totally different, but worst to first is my storyline. And I kind of want to throw this to everybody else too because I like it. What do you think, Andrew?
Man, I mean, just like Logan said, this could go so many different ways. I mean, it could be so negative or it can be positive. I would love for it to just be, the Lions finally don't beat themselves. like I would love to have that storyline of the Lions got out of their own way and played some good football. So I'll have to go with that.
Okay. Like that. How about you, Ryder?
I'm convinced that it's going to be one or the other, and there's no in between. It's either going to be Stafford finally has a running game or same old Lions, they can't run the ball. Like, there's no in between. It's going to be either very top or very bottom of that. And I hope it's the first one. I hope is that the Lions run the ball. Stafford finally has a run game, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's one of those things. We just got to keep hoping. OMG, what do you think the storyline come the end of the season is for the Lions?
The rocket scientist figures it out.
Okay.
Yeah, that's gonna be the headline. The rocket scientist figures it out. Yeah, oh yeah.
There you go.
Right.
Because I think we can expect more from his defense. Because the third year is that magical year. There's no more. I don't know what the defense is going to be. No, that defense better be middle of the road at least. Because it's the third year, so he's had time, and that offense is going to be the same juggernaut it always is. So, hey, rocket scientist figures it out.
I really like that one. That's a good storyline. Let's see. This next question comes from Go Lions. It's basically for those of us on the panel, and I think the answer to this: if there is no football this season, what will Detroit Lions creators do? And I think the answer is cry, because we will have to continue talking about the same things and speculating the same things until we just literally lose our minds.
Well, no, we'll just continue to speculate, and I'll keep hyping y'all up that DeAndre Silva and Kerryon gonna run the ball for them a whole extra year.
There we go.
We'll be like Matthew. We'll be like Matt Patricia had an extra year to get the defense right. I'm sure he worked all the kinks out. Darrell Bevel had all this time with his guys. It's gonna work out. We'll find a way.
Logan, what do you think you'll be writing about if there's no football this season?
I have no idea. Because on a daily basis, I'm always saying, oh, man, what am I going to talk about today that I haven't already talked about in the last 2 months since the draft? It's going to just continue all that speculation. Still trying to break down. I'd probably go back and start watching old games. Games long enough, maybe the 2011 season. Long enough ago where you remember kind of what happened, but you don't remember every play. Because I've done that before where I watched old games, and it is kind of fun because it's like, oh, yeah, I totally forgot about that, or I didn't even notice that. So it is, I don't know what I'd do. It's going to be brutal, though, if it does, in fact, happen that way.
I agree. I can't even imagine trying to come up with content like that day after day, but somebody's got to do it. You do a pretty good job of it right now, even though we're hashing out the same stuff over and over again, I got to say. So let's see. Luke G said,
I try to always look at new stats.
Yeah, you are the stat master for sure. So let's see. Luke G says, should fans be excited if the Lions make the playoffs in a modified season? What do you think about that, Logan?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Should fans be excited if the Lions make the playoffs in a modified season?
Oh, yeah. No, I'm going to be excited no matter what happens if they make the playoffs. I don't care if there's a little asterisk next to it. I mean, there's been so many different ways that the Lions, have hurt themselves in years past. If they can just find a way to figure it out, even though it is an odd season, I'm all for it because it's still technically a season and it'll go down in the record books as one of the more memorable ones, and the Lions made it happen.
I agree. I'll take any playoff appearance with an asterisk any day. I don't really care. How about
them other teams? Those other teams all are in the same situation, so there shouldn't be no asterisk unless those other teams' star players don't play. If everybody's playing, well, why would there be an asterisk just because it's less games? Everybody's playing the same game.
Yeah,
I like your thinking, J-Mo.
Absolutely. Let's see. Mr. White says, do you think Collins gets consideration? Okay. Do you think Colin gets consideration by the Lions if something happens to Stafford in reference to Colin Kaepernick? What do you think about that, Logan? Colin Kaepernick getting considered by the Lions if Stafford goes down?
Probably not, I would say, just because they did sign Chase Daniel. I think that's their guy. They gave him a 3-year deal. So that anytime a backup quarterback gets a 3-year deal, I think that shows a lot of faith in that quarterback. Now, if they don't believe in David Blau or he doesn't really progress, they thought highly of him enough last year to keep him around and even started games. But it'd be interesting. I just think the Lions are comfortable with the 3 quarterbacks they have now, and it'd be 2 without Stafford.
Okay. Does anybody on the panel?
Yeah, I wanted to ask Logan a question about that because I would agree with you if Sheila didn't mention his name. Right. I've never heard Martha Ford say the word Colin Kaepernick. Like Sheila mentioned his name. She said we might consider it. I'm like, you might do what? Like I was like, what? Right. Like I'm like the world stopped because I've never heard a Lions owner talk about something like that. And the fact that she even said the words leads me to believe that it would be considered. Like if he went down and it didn't work, and let's say Chase Daniels throws 6 interceptions in 2 games. And they like, the Lions are, let's just say we have a good record. Like, we can't, and Stafford don't come back for 6-7 weeks, but we can salvage the season like what happened with Drew Brees. She going to be like, no, let's get Cap and win a few games. What do you think about that, Logan?
Yeah, I mean, she's definitely open to it. She basically said if the GM, Bob Quinn, and the staff thinks that they're going to help him win, you bring him in, and I'm all for it too. And I do think, we haven't seen him play in such a long time. That's where it's just difficult to know where exactly he's at, and he would have to learn the system. But I think he's definitely more talented than Chase Daniel. It is kind of funny how Chase Daniel just continues to be a backup in this league and getting paid good money to do next to nothing except hold a clipboard.
More than Cam freaking Newton.
Yeah. It's kind of odd that he's still making all this money. But, if Cam Newton, if Matt Stafford would go down, I mean, Colin Kaepernick, I'd say, if he's still around and they want to give him a tryout and see what he has and he can pick up the offense quickly and get wins, I'm all for it. I just want the Lions to win. I just don't know if general manager, because Sheila kind of directed the question about Kaepernick to Bob Quinn. If he thinks that Kaepernick can help him win, go for it. And that's the philosophy and the mindset they should take.
My thing is Martha didn't even say nothing, though. Like, she giving Bob Quinn, I feel like she giving Bob Quinn an option. You never know.
Right. Yeah, but Martha never said anything about anything.
Exactly. That's
True.
She was very tight-lipped with the media, so that's definitely something that I think will be a refreshing change if Sheila actually addresses the media a little bit more, so we can kind of see their mindset, like where they're at most of the time.
I agree.
Let's see. I love this question. Logan, can you tell us a stat that many fans should know but don't?
Oh, I mean, I have so many of them that I usually any stat
drop
that I find,
a couple.
Though, I don't keep them to myself. I always just tweet them out there. So I'm just going to defer to my Twitter account. Just go look there. I don't want to get any of them wrong too, because I always have so many specific little numbers and details. I'm not trying to mess any of them up. So I tweet out any stat I find, I tweet it out.
Okay, let them know what your Twitter tag is so that they can go find some of these stats.
It's at Lamorandier, spelled Lamorandier. Usually if you just type Logan and Lions, it comes up.
Yes, you guys, seriously.
He's kind of a big deal, guys.
Yeah, seriously, follow Logan on Twitter. I think he's, a back-to-back winner of Best of Lions Twitter, right? Voted by fellow Lions Twitterers.
Yeah. Sorry, Rachel.
Yeah, I guess so. I need a T-shirt printed off.
You do.
We can get you a thumb finger, man. Yeah, I do have a question, though. I mean, like I said, I'm a huge fan of yours. And and you have been going off about Matthew Stafford and all the haters and stuff. And I just want to know what lit that fire, man? Like, did someone just make you snap one day and you were just like, I'm sick of the Stafford hate, I'm about to shut it all down? Or like, what happened there?
Ask his partner down.
Well, it's kind of funny because I have all these Excel spreadsheets that I pretty much just update every year. Because I've started doing this research probably 4 or 5 years ago, and I just kind of update it every year. So it is at this point of the season, it usually is kind of at the lull where there's not a ton going on, pre-training camp, and there's all these, rankings going out, and everyone's saying, X player is better than X player. I just always try to get it out there that, this is what Stafford's been working with, and you can look at the stats. You can take these stats with a grain of salt, however you want. But these are the facts. And I just let people do what they want with it. I've kind of gotten over the whole Matthew Stafford debate, and I usually just copy and paste stats whenever I get into the argument about it. Because I go into these arguments so many times. I'm just like, this is it. Like, I've done the research. I don't have many opinions that aren't backed by some sort of data or facts. So that's what I usually go to. I just want to have that material readily available. So when I do get in these conversations, I just show them this tweet or stat.
Okay.
Right.
No, that's awesome.
Logan.
You always got to have some sort of stat to back your argument, or else it's not really an argument.
Oh yeah! Shout out to Luke G for that.
Yeah, that was a great question. And Luke's go-to phrase is "Don't be a chump, do your research." So, JMO, did you have a question?
No, I was gonna ask. Does he think that the Lions going 0-8 without Stafford validates all that stuff you've been tweeting out?
Yeah, I think a lot of it just kind of shows what the team is without Stafford, and how he's been carrying the team for such a long time. And that was one of the stats I posted that I found just when I started going off on all these Stafford stats and rants, I guess if you want to call it. But Stafford, since 2010, basically Stafford's second year in the league, 49% of the Lions' wins have come on game-winning drives that Stafford has orchestrated, and that's the highest percentage by any quarterback in any one decade in NFL history. So it just kind of shows, quarterback wins, that's kind of a team stat, but I do think game-winning drives, like that, pretty much the team relying on the quarterback's arm to get you down the field, and Stafford has to do that quite a bit, and he's pretty successful at doing it, a lot more successful than most other players. So I don't know, man. It's
I just feel as if I feel as if the people attack the players instead of ownership. And what I mean by that is you don't really know how bad these rosters they be putting together are. But when you got guys like Barry Sanders and Megatron and Stafford, they can mask all of that. But once you lose a Barry Sanders, once you lose a Matthew Stafford, you see this roster is trash. Because I was talking to some Lions fans, and they're like, we should be able to win more games. And I'm like, if you don't have a top 10 quarterback on this team, even though I know we got offensive talent, you're not going to win any games, and we 4-12 every single year.
Right.
It's sad.
Yeah.
It's sad. Sure. It's not like I like to say it. It's just the fact of the matter.
Well, and that was actually another stat I put up, that in the last 50 games the Lions have played without Stafford as their starter, they've only had 6 wins. And that dates back pre-Stafford. But again, it just kind of shows, what the Lions have been working with, and how Stafford has, it's been a very mediocre team as a whole. But I feel so much of that is Stafford carrying this team out of the bottom of the barrel just into mediocrity, which is not a lot of quarterbacks can do that.
When he wins 8 games, we get the 3rd overall pick. Like, come on.
Right.
Right.
Me and Stafford have a love-hate relationship.
Green Bay lost Aaron Rodgers. They did not get no 3rd overall pick. You know what I'm saying?
True.
They lost him twice. True. They didn't get no 3rd overall pick.
Yeah, just goes to further show, exactly what Logan's pushing, that what we are not without, or what we are without Stafford is just pitiful. But I like this question for Ryder too. Ryder, can you tell us a stat that many fans should know but don't? Because you're always coming out with the crazy stats on these shows.
I don't have one right off the top of my head right now, but I can't think of something right now that is crazy. I mean, the 13 players playing in every game was pretty crazy, or 15 or whatever it was, but I can't think of one right off the top of my head. I'd have to look at something.
That's okay. You tweet one out to us later. This is a silly one. Logan, who is Captain America and who is Tony Stark between you and John?
I'll give John Captain America, and I'll be Tony Stark. I'm fine with that. I'll take either.
Logan, I'm so glad you didn't say Cap. I was gonna lose it. I was like, please don't say Cap. Don't say Cap. Thank you. Team Iron Man over here. We don't mess with Cap.
Hey, I like Iron Man. I've actually watched all the Iron Man movies, so I can't say the same about all the Marvel movies, but I have watched all the Iron Man movies. I enjoy them.
I got another question. Do you think it would be harder for Jeff Okudah to live up to his hype in the first year because of the pandemic? But after that, do you think he'll be able to live up to what he's supposed to be?
I think Jeff Okudah is pretty pro ready, playing in Ohio State's defense. They're a man-heavy defense. They started playing a little bit more zone last year, which was good because you saw just different mixes. But there is a learning curve at the cornerback position, but there's plenty of examples. You look at Marshawn Lattimore and Denzel Ward, Tre'Davious White. There's been a lot of highly selected cornerbacks that have come right in year one and played well. And I don't think Jeff Okudah, with just his mindset and his personality and how dedicated he is to the game, I think he's going to be prepared no matter what happens. But I think the biggest limiting factor with him will probably be lack of pass rush.
So it don't even have nothing to do with him.
Right.
Like every other quarterback problem is on our team, at least.
That's right.
All right, so I'm gonna let the panel wrap up. If you've got one last question or something for Logan now, Andrew, you got anything else you wanted to ask?
Yeah. So me and two fellow DSA members got into a heated debate over this the other day.
Oh boy.
So when it comes to Davante Adams speaking out about knowing our coverages and just knowing exactly what we're going to do, what do you think about that when a player comes out and says that?
So the first reaction was just kind of disappointment because there's so much with this league that's about deception, and but at the same time, the Lions, you look at their situation, they're a man-heavy defense. They run a ton of man defense. Other teams know it, and the man defense is pretty much it's exactly what it says it is. It's your man versus the next, and you have to out-execute and outperform the guy lining up across from you. And that's what the Lions did. And even though Davante Adams said that they always knew what the Lions were going to do, Aaron Rodgers had two of his worst performances of the year against the Lions, oddly enough. And in week 16 against the Lions at Ford Field, Rodgers threw the most incompletions he's ever thrown in a game against the Lions. So I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing, but I think it should be something they work on to disguise things just maybe a little bit more. And maybe that's you look at the Lions quarterback, or the quarterbacks that have faced the Lions, like the Mitchell Trubisky's and the Daniel Jones and the Dwayne Haskins of the world that really did really well against the Lions. Maybe they should mix up the coverages a little bit more against those guys and try to get those younger quarterbacks a little thrown off. But it's just weird how that whole interview with Davante Adams just blew up. But you look at what the Lions did to Aaron Rodgers, and they contained him just fine last year.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I was on the same page with you, man. I pretty much was like, if the Packers had the game plan and it was that easy, then it's like having a test and getting a D- on it. Because I mean, they literally didn't lead. They didn't lead in any of those games last year. They had to win on a field goal, and one of them we didn't even have our starting quarterback. So I thought, I was just on the same page as you.
Right.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
Adams didn't play one of those games.
That's true.
How about you, Ryder? You got a last question for Logan?
Yeah. So Patrick Mahomes the other day signed his big contract. And, with that, I don't think they have enough money to pay Christian Jones what he wants to be paid. So do the Lions...
I can't hear Ryder right now.
Oh, you can't hear
I'm not
me?
hearing anything.
Uh-oh.
What were you going to ask, Ryder?
Uh-oh.
Should the Lions trade for Christian Jones if they have the cap space? Since
you mean Chris Jones, not Christian Jones.
That's what I meant.
He asked should the Lions trade for Chris Jones if they have the cap space.
Oh, yeah. Lions have the cap space. They have the third most right now in the league. They're sitting right around $28-29 million of open cap. So a lot of times you can work around the cap, too, if they wanted to add that type of quality of player and give him a long contract. They could make something work. But the Lions are sitting pretty right now in cap space, and that's one of the big question marks is what are they going to do with it? There's no reason to be sitting on all this cap space in a win-now type of year for Quinn and Patricia.
That's what I was going to ask. Don't you think they should make a power move? Like, I know Jamal Adams doesn't want to be here, but Chris, it's just a few star players out there that we can make that could change the makeup of our team. And I feel like the other teams in our division literally have done it. We watched the Packers go get Zadarius and Preston. Now they win the division. The Bears get Khalil Mack. They win the division. The Vikings was a little bit more organic. But, we've seen the other teams in our division do that. So I just wanted, should we go make that power move to, try to win the division?
Yeah, I would like to see it. You don't often see the Lions making those big time trades, and it's just something different. And with how good of a football player Jones is, and how much of the defense is predicated on the defensive line, not only stopping the run, but just winning through power to get to the quarterback. Jones fits that to a T. So I would love to go get him. You just wonder how much the Lions would have to give up to get him. If the Chiefs are asking for a first round pick, I mean, that's a tough pill to swallow, especially considering you don't know what the Lions, next year, whatever their record's going to be. If Jones is the last piece of the puzzle to make the Lions like a Super Bowl contender, I would do it in a heartbeat. But I just question if the Lions want to give up their next year's first round pick, and that's probably what the Chiefs are asking for him. That's the biggest hang up on me. But I wouldn't mind if Jones won't get.
I think. No offense to nobody coming out next year, but I don't think any of those players will be Chris Jones for us.
Yeah, that's what I was
saying. And he's only 25 years old. So basically, you're literally like, you have to sign him. Basically, you're saying we're giving up a first round pick for a 25-year-old young stud. I mean, sometimes other teams have done it. I mean, we still got the second and the third and the fourth round. Let's just you can look at it like, look, we just drafted a stud in the first round. His name is Chris Jones. If you want to look at it like that.
Well, yeah, but you're also paying him top dollar too.
Yes, you are.
Iffy. You're not getting the cheap rookie, but I agree with you 100%. You're more likely than that you're not going to find any player the caliber of Chris Jones, because he is one of the best, and there's a reason why he's holding out and demanding a long-term contract, because he knows he's one of the best and he deserves a long-term contract.
I agree.
Yeah. Can I say something real quick?
Yeah, go for it, Ryder.
Like, if the Detroit Lions if the Detroit Lions were willing to give up a first and a second round pick to get Rob Gronkowski, who had 1 year left, why wouldn't they give up a first and some for Chris Jones, who's going to play for 5-6 more years? Well, maybe not more than that, but he's going to play a lot longer than Rob Gronkowski was. We were willing to give a first and a second for Rob Gronkowski.
Good question.
That's a good point.
Did you hear Ryder?
I was just about to say, can you repeat the question?
No,
I can't hear him.
He said, why do people think that we wouldn't give up a first with Chris Jones when we were willing enough to give a first and a second to get Rob Gronkowski? Rob Gronkowski's career was going to be short, and Chris Jones is going to be here with at least 5 to 8 years.
No, that's a good point, and I'm so glad that Gronkowski trade didn't go through, because I would have been pretty upset about that.
Oh man,
considering his age. Yeah, like, Chris Jones.
Bill Belichick, I love you.
Right. Thank you, Gronk, for just basically saying, I'm going to retire before I go anywhere else. He just wants to play with Brady, and I don't necessarily think that was a Lions thing as much as it was, I just want to play with Brady. And you saw Tom Brady sign with a new team, and there goes Rob Gronkowski as well. But that I would take the Chris Jones trade over that Gronk trade 100 times a day. There's no debate there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was a really good question, Ryder, and a really good comparison. OMG, you got a last question for Logan?
Yeah. So the Lions have basically 3 blocking tight ends that can catch. So they got Nada, they got Jesse James, and they got Hockenson. And then they got 2 backs in the second rounds of 2 drafts. Do you think the Lions are kind of late on the power running when now it's turned to more of the spread offense they were trying to run under Caldwell? Do you think the Lions are kind of late on the bandwagon to try to turn into that power run team?
No, I think they could still be the power run team if they wanted to be, just with their personnel. But like I kind of looked into last year, they didn't have a ton of success running the ball when they were in those heavy formations. And TJ Hockenson, actually, for all of his height, being he was a great blocker, as a rookie he was slightly above average comparing to all the NFL tight ends, but he played a ton in the slot as well, which I thought was interesting. Don't quote me on this, but I think it was right around 47 or 48% of his snaps came in the slot. So they use him all over the place. And I think that's really good. If you're going to draft a tight end that high, he better be able to do it all. And Hockenson can. But my my hope is that the Lions are able to still find that power rushing attack when they need to get in that 4-minute drill. Something the Lions have never been able to do is run out the clock at the end of the game or just milk that clock down and take all the pressure off Matthew Stafford, and as he can just hand the ball off and they can just go win the game. It always comes down to, they're going to have to rush for -2 yards, and Stafford is in 3rd and 12, and if he doesn't get it, they punt, and the defense always seemingly allows the other team to score, and then Stafford has to go save the day. So I don't think that the Lions are like late to the game at the power rushing attack. I think the running backs are a little bit more shifty and want to be in open space, but they still got Bo Scarborough to be that hard-nosed ground and pound type of back. They want to go into that type of game plan.
Okay. I like
that. Was a great answer. Everybody got to do their last question on the panel, correct? Because I'm just going to finish up with mine. You guys all went? Okay.
Yep.
So my last question, and this is one that I'm kind of recycling from the other day just because I like it a lot, is does your faith in Darrell Bevell's success with run games in his 2nd season as offensive coordinator help to counteract your distrust in Matt Patricia as a head coach?
Yeah, I have full trust in Darrell Bevell just because he's done it before. He's proven. He's done it in multiple organizations where he's been able to find. Now, you have to admit he has had some pretty good running backs when he's done that with Marshawn Lynch and Adrian Peterson. But Bevell, to me, is a guy that, I have full faith in him right now, that he knows how to run an offense. He knows how to take advantages of weaknesses of opponents and finds a way. So I'm really looking forward to see what Bevell has up his sleeve this year, because I do think the Lions are changing that philosophy a little bit of how they're going to use their running backs and how they're going to use their tight ends. And Hunter Bryant, even their undrafted rookie free agent tight end, who's more of just a big slot type of guy. I wonder if they have a role in mind for him. I don't know if they'll keep a fullback on the roster, but Bevell, to me, I think he showed it last year that even when Matthew Stafford went down, he was playing with quarterbacks that, David Blau might not even be on other teams' rosters, and they were at least competitive in a lot of those games. It's one of those. You look at the Lions had a lead in the 4th quarter at some point in the game for like the first 12 games or something ridiculous like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of that has to do with Darrell Bevell.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I have a lot of faith in Bevell, and I just hope that they sort of shift their philosophy defensively as well, especially when it comes to blitzing. I'm just hoping that we can find some balance this season. And if we are explosive offensively and still giving up 400 yards a game like we were last season, then I don't know quite where that leaves us. But if we can adjust that defensive philosophy a little bit as well, maybe let Undlin have some say. I don't know how it's going to go as far as whether Patricia's still going to be controlling this defense all on his own, or whether Unlin's going to have some sort of say in that. If anything, I'm really hoping he says blitz more.
Right, or at least bring 4 players when you're rushing the passer.
Yeah, don't rush 3.
Yeah.
All the craziness, but we'll keep all fingers crossed for that. We're going to go ahead and move on to our final thoughts for the night. Let's go ahead and start with you, Ryder. What are your final thoughts for everybody in the chat?
Obviously. Oh, okay. Obviously, thank you everybody for coming out and watching the round table. I had a lot of fun tonight, even with the technical difficulties. I still think it was a good show, and thank you, Logan, for coming on and hanging out with us for a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate it.
All right, JMO, what are your final thoughts?
Oh man, I was glad to talk to Logan today, man. I remember talking to him years ago about Stafford. I judge you by a few things. I judge you by whether you think Matthew Stafford has been carrying his team or not, and obviously he thinks that. And I'm just glad we were able to talk some football. Shout out to all of the people in the chat, but I am concerned about a lot of things about this team. But I will believe that Darrell Bevell is going to get this running game going, and Will can be successful. And as always, sign Kenny Golladay before I lose my damn mind.
Right.
Before JMO loses his mind. How about you, OMG?
Yeah, I had a good time today. I'm glad I finally got to speak with Logan and got to kind of hear him and pick his brain apart. And I just enjoyed today, man, and talking with the DSA. So, you know.
There we go. All right, Andrew, your final thoughts for the night?
I just gotta say thanks, Logan, for coming on and talking a little bit of football with us. And I definitely gotta say, if you guys do not know who Logan is, or you do not follow him on social media, you need to get your act together and follow this man. All right, he gives you so much information about the Lions, like 24/7, and it's always so current. So make sure you go give him a follow and you find out who this guy is.
Right.
Absolutely. And then
no problem.
Logan is our special guest. What are your final thoughts for the night? And make sure to tell everybody where they can read everything from you and see all the crazy stats you're posting all the time.
Yeah, so I think my final thought is this roundtable, this panel is pretty awesome. I really enjoyed it, and having, multiple opinions injected and kind of play off one another and hear opposing views. I know I have my opinions, but I always respect opinions that go against mine. And I do think it keeps me a little level-headed a little bit and kind of always try to do my research if someone brings up a good argument. So it's pretty cool. I really like what you guys have going on. But yeah, to find me on Twitter, it's at Lamorandier. I'm also on Facebook as well, Instagram. And like I said earlier, any stat I find, I'm always digging in and researching, and anything that I find interesting, I post it. I'm not going to hide it from the world. I don't have any secret stats. If I find anything, it's going on social media or in an article. So you can find my writing at si.com/NFL/Lions. Give John a shout out there as well. Doing a lot of cool things over at SI, and I appreciate you guys having me on, and I look forward to doing it sometime soon, because it was a lot of fun.
Awesome. Well, we were really glad to have you on. I will go ahead and wrap it up. And for everybody in the chat, I'm sorry, I'm not Luke, so I don't have like an inspirational quote from the Wiggles or anything like that. But I will say thank you, Logan, so much for joining us. Definitely hope to have you back sometime, maybe closer to like the start of the season when we've got a little bit more information and can talk about some different things and what to expect. You guys make sure that you follow Logan on Twitter, that you check out si.com/NFL/Lions. They got a lot of good things going on there. Remember to subscribe to all the members of the DSA. Their links are in my recommended channels. And hit the notification bells so that you can see when new videos are going to be coming out. With all that to be said, you guys know the deal. One Pride.